Hi guys, my name is Christine and I'm a dating, relationship and personal development coach, and today I'm talking about, will your ex move on after no contact? Okay, so you're doing no contact and you're basically afraid, right? You're fearful that your ex is going to forget about you, is going to move on after no contact. So I want to let you know that that actually could be a real possibility, right? And a lot of people may not really want to hear that, but it could be a real possibility if they truly are over the relationship, okay? If someone is over you completely and they're happy the breakup has happened, there's not really much you can do about that, right? The only thing you can do is your own actions and how you move forward and how you process things and how you get over it and things like that. So you can't really control them, but you can obviously put your best foot forward and do what you can basically to reattract them. And the best way to do that is to do no contact, is to give them that space, right? Because you can't make someone miss you if you're always in their DMs, if you're always messaging them. So by doing no contact, that's what you can control. You can't control whether or not they can come back or not, okay? And you won't be able to attract them back into your life if they're over it, if they're glad the relationship is over, if they're relieved to the point of they'll never contact you again, okay? So there's not really much you can do. And what you've got to remember is, if you've been dumped, if they dumped you, it has to be their choice to come back, right? There's nothing you can do to manipulate them to come back, okay, in that sort of way. There's no point, you can't convince them, basically. If they've already made that decision, no amount of you convincing them is going to change their mind, okay? It's like if you've made a decision on something. If you think of something that you truly believe, that you've made a decision on, and it's something that you strongly believe, it's going to be very difficult for someone to sway your opinion through logic and reason, because usually what happens, right, when two people are arguing, they stick to their guns even more. The more you try and reason, the more you try to change their opinion, the more they cling to their opinion. And you can kind of see this, I don't know if you ever look through like people arguing on Facebook and stuff, or on Twitter, right? Sometimes it's kind of interesting to see people argue. And even though the other person who's debating with them is giving them good solid points on why what they're thinking is wrong or whatever, the other person never gives in. Like, never. Like, you hardly ever see someone say, oh yeah, okay, you just completely changed my mind there. You don't see it hhappening, right? Because you can't convince someone like that. You can't convince them in that kind of way to change their mind if they already believe something, okay? So it's all it does is it just makes the situation worse, and it makes them cling to their beliefs even more. So the best thing to do is to just let it go. Do no contact. Let them come up to give them the space to come to a different conclusion, rather than trying to convince them, in any other way, basically. Okay. So what's important, right, is that if they do still have feelings for you, right? If they still have feelings for you, they will start to miss you eventually, and they will reach out to you, okay? That you will hear from them if they still have feelings for you. But also, you can't really be living by the phone waiting for them to contact you, okay? Because, you may not know, right? And very few people do know if their ex is going to come back into their life, right? So you kind of have to move on. You kind of have to assume that they're not coming back. You have to assume that they're no longer interested, that they have got to that place where they no longer want you, even if it's not true, right? Because that gives you the space to move on with your life, and because you don't want to be waiting by the phone, right? You don't want to be sitting there waiting for someone who may or may not show up, right? Because that is just called wasting your life, right? And you don't want to waste your life, okay? You want to start moving on, right? And it may take some time, right? But at least you're moving on. At least you started the process of getting over them, right? And some ways that you can do that is writing down your thoughts about the relationship, thinking about it, going back through it, thinking about what you could have done better, because you can't really change what they did, but maybe you will perhaps change at some point that kind of person. Maybe you want to kind of attract someone different, so you're no longer with that kind of person who does those things, right? That's something that you can change. But there's also a few things that maybe you did wrong that you could have done better, that you're going to change in the future as well. And sometimes that can really help too. And basically, yeah, just finding a way you can get over it. Obviously, getting a therapist is a good idea too if you're really struggling with getting over them and you're feeling really down about it, feeling really low. Other things as well is, getting yourself some goals that you can start working towards. That also helps as well, because you need to have other things going on in your life. You can't just let your love life and your ex be the only thing that's happening with you, right? Especially in your free time, because you might have a full-time job or you might be studying full-time. What are you doing in those idle hours? What are you doing in those times where you're on your own and you're just doing your own thing, when you're not at work, when you're not at school, right? Those are the things that you got to find ways to fill your time and use that time wisely. Use it in a productive way where you feel like you're actually moving your life forward. Right? Because a lot of people spend their idle time doing idle things, right? Like watching Netflix, playing too many video games, eating crap, right? Just spending their time scrolling endlessly on their phone. You should be using your free time as wisely as possible so you can start moving and progressing in life. And you know what? The time is going to go by anyway, so you might as well spend your time doing something productive. Okay? So that's the things that you can control, but you cannot control your ex. Okay? And like I said, if it was their idea to dump you, it has to be their idea to come back. Even if you made loads of mistakes, even if you were the one that drove them away because you were too needy, or you just weren't putting your best foot forward, or you're underappreciating them or something, maybe you was doing everything wrong, right? And it pushed them away. It should still be their idea to come back into your life, even if you're the one that did most of the things that were wrong. Right? Now, obviously, sometimes it's a good idea to apologize to your ex if you haven't done so already. If you've already apologized to them, if they already know that you want them back, then you don't need to do anything more. But if you just broke up and you haven't extended that apology for your part in the breakup and for the things that maybe you did wrong, then I recommend that you go and do that. But you don't say to them in the same sentence, I want you back, or anything like that. You just say to them, hey, just reaching out to say that I'm really sorry for X, Y, and Z. Just wanted to apologize for my part in the breakup. And I hope you have a good day. You don't have to reply to this message. That's all you have to say, right? And then what could happen is then they start reaching out to you, right? They might be like, oh yeah, okay, thank you for apologizing. How are you? Right? And then you can maybe start a conversation if obviously they ask you questions, right? If they just say, thank you, that was nice of you to say, you don't need to reply to that, right? Don't reply to it, right? You have to wait for them to then start reaching out to you more and asking you how you are, what you've been up to, because that's the best way to tell. Basically, if an ex wants you back, they start reaching out to you and they are the one that's initiating the conversation. So they're saying things like, hey, how are you? What have you been up to? And they're trying to make the conversation last longer, right? You can tell that they're trying to make the conversation go on for a lot longer, right? So will your ex move on after no contact? Yes, they may very well do, but only if they have gotten over the relationship and they truly have moved on with their lives and they no longer love you and they've definitely come to that concrete decision that they do not want you back in their life. However, with exes that are a little bit on the fence, who perhaps are unsure, or an ex that does still love you and care about you, will come back, but only if you do no contact, right? Only if you give them space, essentially. It doesn't have to be no contact. It could be just space, just giving them lots and lots of space, right? And that means not messaging them, essentially no contact, right? Not liking their posts, not watching their stories, or anything like that. And so when they look at their phone, they do not see your name anywhere. They get no notification from you whatsoever. When they open up their stories, they don't see your name in the list of people that's viewed their stories. They should be wondering where you are. And if they care about you and they love you, they will be wondering where you went. And then they'll start to miss you. They'll fear that they're losing you. And then they'll reach out to you. Okay? But if they don't care about you anymore, then there's not really a lot of no amount of no contact will bring them back, essentially, right? Again, you can always put your best foot forward. You can always stay in no contact. You can always try to improve your life as much as possible. So if they decide to stalk your social media profiles, they see that you're actually doing really well with your life and that draws them back perhaps. I mean, that's what's in your control. That's really the only thing that you can control. And you need to let go of the control over your ex because you can't control them, essentially. They can only control themselves, which is why it has to be their idea to come back into your life. So will your ex move on after no contact? Yes, but only if they are completely over it and do not want you back. And if someone is completely over you like that, you should see that as a good thing, because that all that means is that, okay, this person doesn't love me. right? This person doesn't love me, and I don't want to be with someone who doesn't love me. I don't want to try and force someone to be in my life when they don't want to be there, right? I want to find someone who does love me, who does want me there, even if I've made some mistakes, right? And some of the ways that you may be able to iron out some of those mistakes, if you perhaps feel like, oh, okay, yeah, I did push my ex away for being too needy, or I did this and I was unappreciative, or I cheated, or something like that. If you did do something to push your ex away, then I highly recommend that you go and that you go and read some of these books that I recommend in the description of this video. A few good ones on, if perhaps it was a communication issue, is Men Are From Mars and Women From Venus, and also No More Mr. Nice Guy. If you want to get better at dating, then Models and 3% Man are really good ones for that. Okay, so thank you so much for watching. If you'd like to get in touch with me personally and you'd like coaching with me, then please go to www.christineloveridge.com, and I shall talk to you again very soon. Goodbye.